And our assessment in the Commission on the political side is that actually the pact is not being blocked. There is progress that is being made, maybe slow progress, but kind of steady progress, including on the difficult elements of the pact. Of course, we had very recently, under the Portuguese presidency, the adoption of the EU Blue Card Directive, which is something very important and sends a forceful political message. We equally had the adoption just the other week of the EU Asylum Agency initiative, and this is something which is so much needed on the ground. First of all, so it replies to a real challenge that we do have. The agency already supports so much the member states in the south in particular. So we're looking into, for instance, I don't know, from a statistical point of view, the agency, if it would be a member state, we reached the conclusion that it would be maybe the 5th or the 6th member state in terms of registering asylum applications and supporting the examination of the applications. But they have a super old mandate that does not enable them to really provide all the support member states do need on the ground, etc. So the adoption of the EU Asylum Agency proposal is something which is very important, both in terms of kind of real added value that will provide on the ground, but also in terms of political message, and the fact that this we do hope that this will create a positive momentum in moving forward. It also showed again politically that member states and actually co-legislators are able to make progress on the pact. So there were, for years, because in reality, of course, the discussion started after the migration crisis in 2015. So there were, for years, there was no progress that was made. Today, after 6 months of intense discussions under the German presidency, who has done also fantastic work immediately after the Commission put on the table the pact, and the kind of sober but hopeful approach promoted by the Portuguese presidency, we managed today to have at least these 2 legislative files on which political agreement has been confirmed by the co-legislators, and the files will be formally adopted in the normal procedure pretty soon. So we believe that on this side we are hopeful that this will enclench a positive political dynamic, and that we will be able to continue making progress with other legislative instruments that the Commission put on the table when it presented the new pact. The Slovenian presidency now there will be the informal council meeting, which will take place next week in Ljubljana, and it is their intention to put on the table of the ministers in principle the question of which should be the next steps, how we are going to move forward now. We have the Eurodoc proposal, which is quite advanced in terms of negotiations both in the council. The parliament will be also in a position soon to have a mandate. So this could be, another important file that is being that could have political momentum for moving forward, and again, which is needed on the ground, both in terms of supporting our migration policies, but equally, in terms of all the work that we are doing on interoperability, etc. There is the Union Resettlement Framework Regulation, on which we hear more and more, and this is something we promote as well in the Commission, something on which would be very important to get it adopted, etc. So on the legislative side, things are starting to move, and on the side of the Commission, of course, we want to move away from the simplistic view of package or no package approach, and of course acknowledge that there are certain elements which are very much interlinked, the core provisions of the solidarity and responsibility in different elements, in different instruments of the pact, but there are equally instruments on which we can make progress, and they will make a difference on the ground, and we should go ahead. And so therefore, on this side we are pretty positive. It's also important to know, but you know this very well, that this is in terms of, managing expectations, it's a huge legislative package that is put on the table. And you are all experts, very well that this requires very intense technical work. So I believe that also both institutions, both in the Council and the Parliament, with the huge support of, Commission colleagues in DG Home, they are going through all the technical readings of the legal texts. So these are, hundreds of pages of legislation, and, work is very much advanced on that front. So we try to advance in parallel tracks, doing the technical work, the technical reading of the proposals, and they are going quite well. The Parliament will be, in principle, starting to adopt their negotiating mandates already as from autumn. In the Council, we believe also that the positive momentum created by the two presidencies now will continue with the Slovenian presidency, and will enable significant progress equally under the French presidency. And of course, we are there on the Commission side to support the co-legislators to advance as much as possible. But I was saying before, Lilian, that the Pact is not only the legislative instruments, it's also everything else that we have promoted in terms of replying to all the other challenges that are there on the ground, in terms of including in terms of operational challenges. We have the very complicated question, both politically complicated, legally complicated, complicated from the point of view of values, the question of search and rescue. On search and rescue, I mean, even yesterday we were confronted with again the ocean Viking vessel that was drifting in between Italy and Malta with more than 500 migrants, again more than 120 minors, unaccompanied minors, etc. So for which no member state was ready to take responsibility. So how we are going to go about this? So the Commission put on the table a number of so-called soft law measures, like the recommendation on search and rescue, calling upon member states to cooperate. We took political responsibility there where the legal responsibility it's pretty limited. It's related only to the cases where Frontex has a role to play, etc. Here we followed up on the Commission side on all these, initiatives. We put in place, for instance, the expert group on search and rescue. 2 meetings already took place. There will be a 3rd meeting that will hopefully also involve civil society in, after autumn. So we are making progress, of course, step by step, and taking into account the challenges that are on the ground, the political challenges, etc. Another area where things are developing, I believe in the positive way, it's resettlement and legal pathways, and this is very much present in my mind, because today the commissioner in the afternoon will host a high-level resettlement forum. So it will be actually, and this is a kind of unprecedented, event, because it will be the first time that at European level we do show leadership, and we call all the global players around the table. So we'll have the US minister, we'll have the Canadian minister, we'll have UNHCR, Filippo Grande representative, we'll have Antonio Vittorino, we'll have ministers of both kind of, traditionally resettling countries like, Finland that stepped up their resettlement efforts this year, Italy that is doing a lot on humanitarian admission, but equally emerging resettling countries such as Croatia or Lithuania. So, today this will be an important event where politically we send a very important signal that we need to step up, our efforts on legal pathways. And it's not only about words, it's about action. And the Commissioner very much, most likely you heard her speaking, many times. She wants, for instance, to celebrate the Geneva Convention anniversary by action, by doing things. So we have to, to start doing more and more. So yeah, maybe I will stop here to allow you to, to pick up on various things I have said and to continue our dialogue.
Thank you so much, Alexandra. And this is a more optimistic view also, and highlighting some of the progress that has been achieved and that is possible. And this is also refreshing, because we have heard also more grim views also coming from other high-level practitioners who have joined us to debate these issues. So it is good to also focus on what is possible and what is moving ahead. So I would like to touch upon some of the issues, and you did mention yourself that solidarity is an issue that, like a red thread, goes through several instruments. In fact, also this one of these first instruments to be adopted, EASO, which, as you yourself said, is now running with quite an outdated mandate from 2010, whereas it has been more intensely operationally on the ground, especially in the hotspots. So it was important to move ahead legally. But from what I understand, this also conclusion of the negotiations was possible by, in a way, including the monitoring mechanism within the regulation, but not making it immediately enforceable, and linking it also with the resolution, if you want, first of the solidarity issue more broadly, and in other instruments. Therefore, I wanted also in this vein to ask you to elaborate a bit more on this new concept that in fact didn't previously exist and saw the day of light with the Pact, which is that of the return sponsorship as another way of physical sharing as part of the solidarity toolbox, which has been criticized by some commentators from civil society, but also from the policy field in Brussels, as to issues such as, for example, feasibility, and in terms of how will it create actually its operationalization and administrative overload for member states or not, also issues linked with human rights. So I wanted to have also your view on this new concept and on this new solution and how it fits within the general toolbox of solidarity.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yes, thank you, Lilian, for this interesting question. So first on the EU Asylum Agency, you rightly pointed out to the fact that indeed we had an agreement, but part of this agreement, I mean, the agreement was possible because both institutional players and within the institutional players on the side of the Commission, a group of member states had to show flexibility, and this is something a good lesson somehow we learned. A good lesson we learned, and something positive actually that came out of these negotiations, because it showed that member states, they were ready, most of the member states, because we also had a number of member states that were actually were not part of it, but most of the member states were ready to show flexibility and willingness to try to find a middle ground, and the same on the side of the Parliament. So of course so as to call it, kind of the price to pay at the moment for this compromise was in relation to this monitoring mechanism, and this shows also that on the core provisions, as I was saying before, on solidarity and responsibility, of course things have to be seen together, and they are linked. And they are linked in particular from a political point of view. Of course, in particular the southern member states, the Med5 countries, they were not ready today to accept elements which were perceived as putting more responsibility on their side, without seeing the contours of what will be in the solidarity part of the basket, and hence the need to find a compromise. The Commission often says that even the Pact in itself is a compromise. It puts on the table something which can be acceptable by all member states. It is not perfect, but it is a step forward. And therefore, the compromise found was indeed to preserve the substance of the monitoring mechanism. That is very important, because it was very important for the Commission, for a big number of member states, but equally for the European Parliament, because we want to have asylum systems in the future that are monitored to make sure that the member states, they do have in place the right standards, etc. So the core of the monitoring mechanism has been preserved. Everything that has been agreed, I believe, in 2018, it's still in place. But its entry into force, its application has been postponed. That it has been postponed, it's in two layers. First, the first part of the monitoring mechanism. So those elements which will enable the agency to start already looking into how member states operate their asylum systems, it will start being applicable in 2 years' time. And the other elements, which are more like the procedural consequences of the monitoring, what happens once the agency concludes that a member state has certain shortcomings, etc. This will be enter into force and become applicable once the Asylum and Migration Management Regulation, with its comprehensive approach on responsibility and solidarity, will be applied. So that was this is for me a very interesting kind of also study case, because it showed first the willingness to compromise, the flexibility of all players to go ahead, because the need to reply to a concrete operational need on the ground, but equally the fact that, of course, on the core provisions of responsibility and solidarity, we are not yet there. So of course I'm quite enthusiastic, and we are quite positive in that we do hope that we are on the right track and we are making progress. But of course we are also very much aware of the challenges and the difficulties we will continue having in the negotiations to make progress on the concept of solidarity, what is meant with that, etc. And this debate on the UAA, the negotiations only showed once more that yes, discussions will be difficult. So we cannot be we are not naive on that side. So and this links actually to your second question on the return sponsorship, and how it fits into the basket of kind of the solidarity contributions that member states can demonstrate when that is needed. And for us, I mean, first I would say that of course it's a new concept. So as any new concept, there are lots of questions, and I can tell you, even before we put it on the table inside the Commission, I can tell you that there have been many debates with the experts, both legal experts, technical experts, etc., political debates as well. What does it mean, this new concept, and what is our aim with the return sponsorship? Of course, on the feasibility side, this is something which is now being discussed at length, as you know, both in the Parliament, but mostly with the experts in the member states. Each of them, they have their points of view. So this is something which is ongoing. We believe that we do believe that the bases are there for this concept to work. But of course, this is negotiations are ongoing. So we are there to adjust as that will be necessary, and to go in the direction that the co-legislators will choose. So technically feasible, we believe that this should be the case. In fact, when we started initially to look at this concept, we got inspiration from some kind of pilot projects that took place between some of the member states, where they did in practice return sponsorships, where member states helped each other. It was the case of Cyprus, if I remember well, where a number of returns have been carried out by other member states from Cyprus that didn't have the diplomatic relations with the third country concerned, where the migrants had to be returned, and didn't have also the operational capacity to process all the return cases, etc. So it worked in that case. Therefore, in principle, it should work. It should work for all member states from a technical point of view. Legally, of course, we also looked at it with our lawyers, and we believe that the concept is defendable both, legally in terms of legal soundness, but also, of course, compliance with fundamental rights, etc. But again, I mean, this is a concept that is now being, it has been a lot debated. We believe that there is still a need to continue the discussions. Equally with the European Parliament, it's very important that the Commission indeed continues to explain all the ins and outs of this concept, and to try to adjust whenever that is necessary to make changes. I think you had a dedicated discussion on return sponsorship, so I will not be too lengthy on it. I think a colleague from C1 unit, Catherine, maybe was with you, and she explained as return expert everything about this concept. Politically, for us, this concept was also very important to put on the table, because we wanted to bring member states together, to enable all member states to find a way of contributing to the common effort of putting in place a common European asylum system, of showing solidarity, taking into account the constraints that many member states have from their own perspectives, the political challenges that they are confronted with, and us in the Commission, we try to promote a common solution. So we saw also the benefit from that perspective. So beyond the concrete support that we thought that this can provide to the member states in the south, we equally approached it politically, and we widened up the possibilities for all member states to take part to the solidarity efforts.
Thank you. This was very comprehensive. And my second question, before opening the floor to our participants, will rather focus on the soft law measures in the Pact, and one specific aspect. So I was wondering about the political buy-in and the incentives maybe that exist for member states to participate in the talent partnerships, but also in other legal access modes, whether for entering the labor market or for protection purposes, but other than the resettlements frameworks, which you already touched upon in your answer to the initial question. So these are less covered areas, and less attention has fallen on these areas, but of course they are very important as some kind of fresh thinking or new initiative that could exist on new legal pathways, whether to protection or to accessing the labor market, but safely and legally, of course.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. So this is something on which we are working also very actively in the Commission, Lilian, and also we see a kind of change in the mindset of a number of member states. Indeed, I mean, resettlement, I will not say more on it, but on the side of the other complementary legal pathways for people in need of international protection, this is something which we try. I mean, you know very well that we had our recommendation on this topic, where for instance we called for developing a European approach on community sponsorship. Of course, taking into account again our specificity, because we are not Canada. We have 27 different systems. So we have to take that into account, and we have to see what is the EU added value, what we can do best at European level to support member states in this process. And here, I believe our agency EASO is already doing a fantastic job, together with also NGOs, international organizations, colleagues in DG Home, this is also one of the reasons actually why we meet even today, in this high-level resettlement, and I can call it complementary legal pathways forum, because it's also a lot about that, looking into means and ways of expanding our legal pathways for people to come in the right manner, for people that don't have to risk their life anymore in order to save their life. So the political focus of the Commission is very much on this. Indeed, looking at other pathways which are complementary to resettlement. This doesn't mean doing less on resettlement. No, it means continuing to resettle and doing more on resettlement, but doing more also on other strands. Of course, it's a bit of a new territory in many of the member states, but there are also emerging good practices and good models that many member states put in place, and we try to replicate them in other member states as well. Actually, related to that, you know very well that we also, in our, for instance, resettlement framework regulation, we introduced the notion of humanitarian admission as well, which is a complementary legal pathway, and the Commission for the first time will equally provide financial incentives and will invite member states to make pledges not only for resettlement but also for humanitarian admissions, and this for next year. So I think work is progressing on that front. I think both at kind of more expert level, because we try to understand, what we can do more to support member states and what member states should do, but equally at political level. So there is a political push and a political dialogue that is taking place with member states by my commissioner on a very regular basis. Then in terms of the labor migration angle, of course, talent partnerships, you mentioned the talent partnerships, and this is something on which we do put as well a lot of hope. You know that we had a pilot project on labor migration, which were very positive, but they were on a kind of too small scale. We did not maybe, we started somehow from scratch at that time. So we put a financial envelope at the disposal of the member states, and a number of member states actually had very interesting projects. And even if on a small scale, we draw kind of very, very good lessons from them. So now we try basically to scale up this pilot projects and to put the talent partnerships as part of the more kind of comprehensive approach with our countries, and the kind of win-win partnerships that we try to develop or to reinforce, because in some third countries we started already to work pretty well. So the Commissioner launched these partnerships together with the member states a few weeks ago, I believe, and now actually, there is a lot of work that needs to be done also on the operational side, both on the Commission side and on the member state side. So we have, of course, to be in a position to put on the table an ambitious financial envelope, because in this area, one of the important incentives towards member states, it is the financial support, also the expertise support, if that is needed, to help member states to understand also how their needs can be fulfilled by the skills of migrants, for instance, but equally in terms of supporting partner countries, in training, in providing training, etc. So developing also their capacity there. So now I think politically the concept has been launched. Member states showed in principle willingness to engage. Political willingness to engage on this front. Now, of course, we are at the stage, as I said, where we have to make this operational and we have to deliver on the political commitments that have been taken. So I'm not in a position today to say more about it, because it's in reality something which is taking place right now. But we believe that good, positive steps will be taken, and this will also kind of pave the way, because you see on the labor migration side, we do two things. We reform our legislative framework, which is also very kind of complex exercise. We had the blue card. We will propose a new skills and talent package towards the end of the year, with several legislative reforms, but equally with several kind of soft law initiatives like the EU talent pool, etc. But in parallel, we try to progress by making things happen. Maybe again small steps, but good and steady steps in the right direction.
Thank you. Thanks so much. This was very insightful, informative, and again, it's good to have a view on what is also forward-looking and forthcoming, and good to know that there is also concrete progress in these areas. Now, at this point, I would like to open the floor for questions from the public. And as always, I will start with our participants who are following us online. I don't know, Elona, can you also help us by letting me know if there are already questions, or if now we have participants who want to take the floor from the online, from those following online?
Yes, Lilian, thank you very much. We have one question online. I don't know if the participant would like to take the floor directly. Madam Solaki, would you like to pose the question yourself, or shall I read it for you? Anyhow.
No, I can do it myself. Good morning.
Okay.
Okay, my question, I sent it written in writing, but let me tell you that it is, do you believe that the dialectic approach, reaching middle ground, can be successfully implemented between not accepting relocation and respecting refugee human rights? It's not clear? Do you want me to elaborate a little bit?
Yes, maybe please elaborate a little bit, yes.
Okay, I think that I feel that you're trying to compromise on the one hand countries that practically refuse to accept any refugees, and on the other hand respect refugee human rights. And you have been talking about compromise, and I feel that these two parts are very difficult to be compromised, and I can't help but feeling that it's a way to reward these countries if you try to compromise things such as not accepting refugees at all. The compromise, I feel that it's something as rewarding these countries.
Mm-hmm.
Before you answer, Alexandra, I would like us to gather a few more questions so that we have a bundle. So perhaps now that the ice has broken, Elona, are there further questions?
Not from the online participants, neither in the class here. Let me check again.
No hands raised, I believe.
Any question? No. It's a silent audience for today. Yes, you can go ahead maybe to answer to this one.
No, we have a question. I think Carolina
just pop now. Yes. We have another question. Maybe I will give the floor to Carolina then. Take the floor.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning. I have a whole list of questions, but that's okay. Maybe in relation to the first one that was asked, I was also wondering to what extent the Commission could also think about formulating red lines or minimum standards, because the current package in the Pact is rather a combination of binding and non-binding initiatives, and as you said, legislative instruments and soft law initiatives, but also considering the fact that the compliance with current rules has been quite poor, and the time that it will take to finally negotiate the current Pact is running, and all the while rules are being broken and rights are being violated. What are you doing to work on the compliance as the negotiations go on, and where are the red lines that maybe need to be communicated more clearly to some member states?
And I saw that in the meantime, there is also a new hand raised electronically.
Yes.
So, Gracia.
Yeah, Graciela, but she also wrote the questions. So, yes, she can take them. You can take the floor, Graciela, or do you want me to read your questions?
Thank you. Good morning. Hello from Madrid. I am a first-year PhD candidate, and I'm very worried about asylum seekers with university studies not getting their studies and professional experience properly validated. So I wonder, from the Commission, would you please give me some details about what stakeholders are doing in order not to have asylum seekers pushed with their university studies into lower income jobs in their destination countries? Because for me, it's just another way of re-victimizing these people and re-traumatizing. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your question, Graciela. Are there any further questions from the online participants or in-person participants?
No, Lilian, not any longer. Yeah, we can go ahead with these questions.
Alexandra, the floor is
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the questions. So maybe I can start with a reflection on the red lines. Does the Commission have red lines? Can the Commission come up with the red lines? And what we do with with the current situation, where the challenges are present on the ground, where there are many protection-related concerns, etc. And how do we ensure that in the meantime also our rules are enforced pending the negotiations on the Pact, which indeed will not be able to be completed in a very, very short time frame. So here I want first to say that in the Commission, of course, we pursue we pursue a work on different tracks. So, and also very well what is our role, our institutional role, and what is our responsibility, and what is member states' responsibility, and what we can do, what we can do under the current mandate that it is ours. We are very attentive, and since Commissioner Johansson took office, we're paying extreme attention to the situation in the member states on the ground, to what happens in Greece, to what happens in Hungary with their asylum legislation, to what happens now in Denmark, in many member states. So we do a number of things. So I even don't know from where to start. For instance, if I take the example of Hungary, it is a clear red line. Access to procedures. Access to procedures. The new law there on the so-called embassy scheme, etc. The Commission took immediate action. And we are we refer the case, and we are in the process of completing all the legal proceedings with a view of ensuring that in the end the Court of Justice has its final say on it. The court already took a number of decisions in that respect, but more are pending. So our enforcement work as guardian of the treaty, we try to step it up, since again the Commissioner took office. There have been a number of infringement cases that have been opened, and this is an area on which we are going to work more and more. Attentive indeed to our red lines, and access to the asylum procedures, it's one of them. Related to this, it's the difficult situation that we are experiencing in a number of member states on the pushbacks. This is again something on which we are first in dialogue with the member states. We try to understand really what is happening on the ground. We try to put political pressure as much as we can with some of the member states, like for instance Croatia. There has been a long process of discussions and negotiations, including at political level, to try to have in place an effective monitoring mechanism, one which includes which is independent, which includes all the stakeholders, etc. So we try to advance both in terms of political pressure, supporting member states to put in place the right tools and mechanisms, such as these monitoring mechanisms. On the Greek side as well, there is a commitment for them to look into this, into the possibility to have in place a monitoring mechanism. But equally, we are using our legal tools, and the infringements, it's one of them. In terms of compliance, in more broad terms, the question was also in terms of our acquis in broad terms. So even beyond this kind of super red lines, but in terms of the core of our rules on protection, on the procedures, on the on the rights that have to be granted both to asylum seekers and to those recognized. This is also something on which we started in parallel with proposing legislation and proposing the new pact. We are monitoring very carefully the situation in the member states. We launched a number of so-called, you might be familiar with these EU pilots. So we sent, kind of it's the pre-infringement stage, if you want, letters that are sent at administrative level to all member states on the transposition and implementation of our current rules. So there is very much the kind of clear understanding as well on our side that we have to go hand in hand. We have to progress. We have to, fill up the loopholes which are which are existing in our systems. At the same time, we also have to enforce and to start implementing and enforcing what it is already there in place and what it is a legal obligation for the member states. So this is something which is ongoing. I mean, you might know that there are a number of infringement cases on all our asylum instruments that we brought forward. Of course, they are first at the level of transposition. We will soon have to go into the implementation side. And of course, from a political perspective, we also need to, we pay very much attention to those most kind of, flagrant violations of fundamental rights. Not only in relation with procedures, as I said before, the access to the asylum procedures is fundamental, but equally in terms of rights, reception conditions, having dignified reception standards. So this is something which we monitor. We try to support member states with our agencies, with money, with expertise, but we are equally moving step by step into the area of enforcement and legal actions, resorting to what needs to remain a last resort measure, because we do want member states to be part of it. Then this also relates a bit to to the previous question on aren't we kind of compromising too much with the pact, and aren't we somehow rewarding in this way a number of countries? And we certainly don't believe so in the Commission. We believe that actually the pact, does take into account the imperatives of many member states and the concerns. We cannot ignore the political reality which is there in a number of member states. But it does so in a way which never compromises on our fundamental principles, which are the respect of fundamental rights. And more than that, I really believe that the pact, offers solutions which today we don't have. Today we don't have, of course, we can criticize the pact that it is not enough ambitious on the solidarity side, that we don't have mandatory relocation. But we have a mandatory system of providing solidarity. We have rules in that system that we propose to ensure that in any circumstances, the member states in the south will get support, including by relocation, when that will be needed. And today there is no system whatsoever. We have the Dublin regulation, which is a system of determining responsibility. We rely fully on ad hoc solidarity solutions. And these ad hoc solidarity solutions consist, DG Home colleagues calling member states around, trying to get some support for some people being transferred. We believe that this is neither sustainable nor actually dignified for the persons concerned. We want a system which is predictable, which provides the assurance to the member states in the south that there will be solidarity. And by the way, not only the south, because we saw now with Lithuania, for instance, that any member state might be in need of solidarity, including in the form of relocations. So this is also a very powerful example that happens today, and which hopefully will play a role in the negotiations. And all member states will understand, hopefully, or most member states will understand, hopefully, that there is a need to be part of it. So no, we don't look at it at all from this perspective. We believe that the status quo today, it's a no option. We believe the pact, of course, it is not perfect. It is a compromise, but never compromising on the fundamental principles. And we believe that we'll be better off for sure with the pact than without the pact. And I also think. Actually, this reminds me of what Filippo Grande was saying the other days, in a public debate. He was saying, the pact is no silver bullet, but the price of not having a pact, this pact, it's much higher than continuing with the price that we pay on a daily basis for not having a pact. So yeah, we really believe that the solutions. There are different options and possibilities that we put there on the table, and this is the basis for having a balanced and a workable compromise in place, one which would never infringe the fundamental rights of people. And then there was a last question, I think, on. In relation to recognition, validation of studies made by asylum seekers. I think this is something it's a very, very important objective that we all have to pursue. Member states have to pursue. Of course, the rules are very, very divergent in that respect in the member states. So I don't know if we are speaking here about refugees. We have also the Students and Researchers Directive. It was not very clear, to me, the scope of the question actually. But politically, I just want to say that of course we need to push member states more and more in ensuring that there is continuity in between what happens, for instance, in a third country for somebody that is studying there, or the other way around for somebody that is here and that wants to move from a member state to another member state, etc. So the investments that took place in terms of education, research, etc. is something which needs to be acknowledged. But of course, there are very complex rules on that, and each member state have their own system. There are also certain rules at European level which member states have to comply with.
Thank you so much, Alexandra. And I see that we have 2 more questions, but we have very little time. So I would like to ask the participants to be very brief and to the point, and to accept that also Alexandra will need to also be brief and concise in her response, because she also needs to leave at 12. So please go ahead. I see.
So Lilian, we will give the chance to the participants on the audience right now. So there are 2 questions here.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
Okay.
Then
good.
We cannot take all questions. Yes. So we take the 2 from the audience. But again, please be brief.
Yeah, of course. Hello, and thank you very much for the debate. I have a small question regarding Spain, because Spain has not transposed the 3 directives on asylum, and these are from 2011 and 2013. We are about to have a new pact on asylum and migration, and Spain has still not transposed the previous directives. I know the Commission has given some warnings to Spain, but I think this has been really soft. Like, why hasn't the Commission acted more strongly to make sure that Spain complies with and transposes the directives on asylum, which are so important for the rights of asylum seekers?
Thank you. And we have another question. Quickly going to the participant. Yes, make it short, please, brief.
Thank you for this conference. Okay, my question is related to the violation of human rights regarding of Libyan migrants. There is yesterday we had a conference with Professor Violeta Moreno, and she proposed the creation of a European Union special representative on the rights of migrants that could oversee the correct application of the provisions with ombuds contributions, because there is, at this moment, there is no person of the European Union which is in charge of these violations. That I would like to ask you, which are the steps that the European Union Commission is taking in order to see, to highlight, to I don't know how to see what is going on and which measures are they taking with regarding this violation of the human rights of Libyan migrants. Thank you. There is a relation because the Libyan guards are receiving support from the European Union in order to make this strong. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And with this, we close the session of the questions. So I give you the floor to answer. Thank you, Lilian.
Yes. Thank you very much for this questions. Again, I mean, on the question with regard again to the enforcement action of the Commission. Yeah, I will need to know a little bit more the details of the case because it's a specific question on Spain and 3 asylum directives. But as I have said, the Commission launched a number of infringements on transposition of our asylum legislation against all member states. So we have a horizontal approach. So, and this is publicly available information. So it's in the number of letter of formal notice to the member states on these matters. And I believe Spain should be part of it. But in parallel, as I have just said, we completed the so-called kind of completeness check of the transposition of all the directives by the member states, the asylum directives by the member states, and we started indeed to approach them again in a horizontal manner. So we treat all member states equally, and we are in the kind of pre-infringement stage with all of them. We are getting into the details of their laws, if you want, seeing what is fine, what is not fine, asking questions, engaging into a dialogue with the authorities before proceeding to the next steps, as this would be required. But again, I wanted to stress that we are kind of this is an important objective for us in the Commission, in parallel to the negotiations on the Pact, which are of key political importance for us. In parallel, we do pursue our enforcement work. Yeah, we will step it up more and more. On the second point, on the respect of fundamental rights of migrants in Libya, if I understood well, this was a bit the question what we do on the European side. Here, of course, this is not only the European side, but it's a kind of international community which is part of it, and we are working hand in hand with UNHCR, with IOM to try to find really sustainable solutions to try to improve both in terms of addressing the immediate challenges and concerns which are there, but also now to try to use the kind of little window of opportunity which seems to be today present there, and to try to come up with solutions to improve the situation of respect of fundamental rights in Libya. As you know, there are all the centers which are there, and the fact that member states are also, a number of them, they are very much committed to support with humanitarian evacuations, with resettlements, with also voluntary returns. So it's a joint, a massive work to reply to a massive challenge which it is there in Libya.
Thank you, Alexandra. Thanks so much for giving us your time and all of these insights. It has been an excellent debate. And we look forward to remaining in touch and to continuing the debate. We will have a dedicated conference on the Pact, the Odysseus Network, together with Egmont on the 9th and the 10th of September at the Egmont Palace. So we hope that in this and other opportunities, we will be able to continue the dialogue. And we thank you so much for dedicating your time today.
Thank you very much. It was an honor for me, and good luck to all of you for the important work that you are also doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.